Hello, my friends. Thank you, dear friend, for being here today. I'm Tom, and I'm Becky. Have you ever frozen up when someone asks you to talk about yourself? What if we told you that with just a few simple patterns, you could introduce yourself with total confidence? Today, we're going to teach you something essential: how to talk about yourself in English. Yeah, this is something you'll use constantly. When you meet new people, when you build friendships, when you begin a new job, when you travel, people will always ask about you. Exactly. They're curious about your name, where you come from, what you do for a living, and what you enjoy. These questions are basic but incredibly important. In this episode, we will provide you with simple and practical phrases, easy to use patterns, and examples. You can practice shadowing with us. Listen and then repeat the words aloud. That's how you truly make the language your own. Let's begin with the very initial step when you encounter someone new: your name. This is the fundamental key to communication. This is quite simple. There are several very common and helpful patterns. The first option is, "My name is Tom." Okay, my name is Tom. The second option is, "I'm Tom." Okay, so both are perfectly correct. My name's Tom, or I'm Tom. Now let's hear a couple of examples. I can say, "My name's Becky," or I could say, "I'm Becky." Both are correct. Both sound natural. Yeah, and you can also provide more detail if you like. "My full name is Thomas, but people call me Tom." That applies to me. On my passport, my official name is Thomas, but in my day-to-day life, everyone just calls me Tom. Same here. My full name is Rebecca, but to be honest, nobody ever calls me Rebecca. So I typically say, "My name's Rebecca, but my friends call me Becky." This phrase, "people call me something," is very handy when you have a nickname or a shorter version of your name. It helps make the introduction feel more personal. Yes, here are a few more examples. My name is Alexander, but people call me Alex. My name is Catherine, but people call me Kate. Perfect. You see, you can apply this pattern in many different situations. Now, Tom, here is a small cultural tip. In English-speaking countries, people tend to use short names or friendly names very quickly. So don't be shocked if someone shortens your name after meeting you just one time. This isn't considered rude or impolite. It's typically a sign of friendliness. You've made a great point, Becky. When I first began teaching, some of my students would call me Mr. Thomas, but I later asked them to just call me Tom, and that felt much more relaxed. Yes. So you have the choice of how formal or informal you wish to be. "My name is Rebecca" sounds formal. "I'm Becky" feels more friendly. All right, after you've shared your name, the next question you'll often hear is, "Where are you from?" People ask this almost everywhere you go in the world. It's a kind way to initiate a conversation, and it helps others understand you a bit better. Yeah. The most basic and useful pattern is, "I'm from the United States." "I'm from Spain." "I'm from Japan." "I'm from Korea." "I'm from Vietnam." When I meet people, I often say, "I'm from the US, but I live in London." Yeah, you can strengthen your answer by including both a city and a country. So the pattern is, "I'm from Cairo." It's in Egypt, okay? Or, "I'm from Tokyo." It's in Japan. This way, if the person isn't familiar with your city, they will still recognize your country. Exactly. Here are some more examples. "I'm from Rio de Janeiro." It's in Brazil. "I'm from Nairobi." It's in Kenya. "I'm from Toronto." It's in Canada. And if you want to be especially clear, you can even mention the region. For instance, "I'm from Munich." It's in the south of Germany. All right. Another very useful pattern is, I was born in somewhere, but I live in somewhere. Okay, so this is perfect when your background is a bit more complex. For example, I was born in Spain, but I live in Mexico now. Or I was born in Thailand, but I live in Dubai. For myself, I can say, I was born in a small town, but I live in a big city now. That shares a piece of my life story. Yeah. And you could also say something like, I was born in London and I still live in London today. That's correct. Here is a cultural tip. In English-speaking countries, people frequently bond over locations. If you say, I'm from Italy, someone might respond with, oh, I love Italian food, or I visited Rome last year. People often use places to build connections and make friends. So don't be taken aback if people mention your country's food, music, or famous landmarks. Yeah, it's a friendly method for keeping the conversation alive. Now, another very common question is, how old are you? People might ask this when they want to get to know you better. It's not usually the first question in English-speaking countries, but it's still good to know the answer. Yeah, the basic pattern is very straightforward. I'm 40 years old. I'm 45 years old. I'm 28 years old. Or if you want to say it more briefly, just say, I'm 28, I'm 41. That's sufficient. Most people will understand immediately. And right away means very quickly, okay? In fact, in casual, informal conversations, people frequently omit years old. They just state the number. I'm 20, I'm 18, I'm 55. Yes, and there's another way to answer if you prefer not to give your precise age. You can say, I'm in my 20s, I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, or I'm in my 60s. This indicates a general age bracket. Okay, but not the specific number. Yeah, so if you say, I'm in my 40s, it could mean you are 41, 45, or even 49. It's a softer way to put it. People sometimes prefer this if they don't want to be overly specific. I often say, I'm in my 40s. That could be 41, 45, or 49, but it gives people an idea without revealing the exact number. Yeah, and here is a cultural tip. In English-speaking countries, people don't often ask about age, especially when talking to adults. Sometimes it can feel a bit personal. Yeah, I consider it a little personal. But with children or teenagers, it's quite common. Exactly. For instance, when you meet a child, you might ask, how old are you? And the child will cheerfully say, I'm 7 or I'm 10. But with adults, it's generally better to wait for them to share it on their own. Still, it's useful for you to know how to state your age if you're asked. Now, here are some additional phrases you can use. I'm almost 30. That means maybe 29, nearly 30. I just turned 18. Okay, I just turned 18. That means I recently became 18. Here's one more. I'm in my early 30s. I'm in my early 30s. That means maybe 31, 32, or 33. And here is the last one. I'm in my late 40s. I'm in my late 40s. That means perhaps 47, 48, or 49. For example, I sometimes say, I'm in my early 40s. That typically means from 41 to 44. All right, let's switch to another very common topic, family. This subject always comes up in small talk. When people are getting to know you, they're usually curious about your family life. A very common question is, do you have any brothers or sisters? Sometimes people use the word siblings. Siblings means brothers and sisters. So they'll ask, do you have any brothers or sisters? Yeah. And it's helpful to have a straightforward answer prepared. The simplest way to reply is, yes, I do, or no, I don't have any brothers or sisters, or I don't have any siblings. For instance, you could say, yeah, I have one brother, or yeah, I have two sisters. In my situation, I usually say, yeah, I have an older sister. That single small word, older, adds more detail. And I typically say, yeah, I have one younger brother. That's also a nice piece of information because people then understand that my brother is not just my sibling, but he is also younger than I am. So if you'd like to provide a little more information, you can use older or younger. For example, I have two younger sisters, or I have one older brother. It makes your response richer. Yeah. And if you don't have any brothers or sisters, that's fine too. There's a special phrase for this. I'm an only child. Okay? I'm an only child. That means you have no siblings. Now, sometimes people want to know the total number of brothers or sisters you have. Okay. They might ask, how many brothers and sisters do you have? Yeah. And in this case, you can provide a number and combine brothers and sisters if you like. For example, I have one brother and two sisters, or I have three sisters. And if you don't have any, you can simply say, I don't have any brothers or sisters. Or the shorter way is, I don't have any siblings. I don't have any siblings. If you want to go a bit deeper, you can talk about your birth order in the family. People may ask, are you the oldest or are you the youngest? I usually say, I'm the oldest child. Yeah. And I usually say, I'm the middle child. That means I'm not the oldest. And if you are the last one born, you can say, I'm the youngest. I'm the youngest. Now, another very frequent question about family is, do you live with your family? This question is about your current living arrangement. Yeah. And there are many simple ways to answer. For instance, you can say, yeah, I live with my parents, or I live with my wife and children. And if you don't reside with your family, you can say, no, I live alone, or no, I live with friends. I live with friends. That's right. So if you want to talk about your living situation, just mention who you live with. Your parents, your partner, your children, or your friends. Or perhaps you live by yourself. If you live by yourself, you live alone. All right? Now let's discuss another very important topic, work and study. This is something people ask about constantly. When you meet someone new, one of the first questions is, what do you do? What do you do? And that question, what do you do? Comma means, what is your job? What is your daily work? It's not asking about your current activity at this very moment. That's a very frequent mistake for learners. But in small talk, what do you do is always about your profession or studies. That's an excellent point, Becky. So if you have a job, the simple answer is, I'm a, and then your job title. For example, I'm a teacher. I'm an engineer. I'm a nurse. I'm a doctor. Yeah. When I talk about what I do, I often say, I'm a language teacher. I work with young learners and adults. That provides both my job title and a little bit of detail about what I actually do. And I usually say, I'm an English teacher. I help learners learn English in a natural way. Again, it's brief, but it offers a little extra information. If you want to make your answer more engaging, you can add where you work. For instance, I'm a teacher. I work in a high school. Or I'm a doctor. I work in a hospital. Or you can describe the kind of work you perform. I'm a driver. I drive a taxi. I'm a cook. I work in an Italian restaurant. Just including one short detail makes your response more personal and simpler for the listener to grasp. Okay, now, Tom, what if you don't have a job right now? People might still ask, what do you do? Well, that's a very good question. In that situation, you can say, I'm looking for a job right now. I'm looking for a job right now. Or, I'm between jobs. I'm between jobs. That's a polite way of saying you are currently unemployed. Yeah, and some people might say, I'm a homemaker. Or, I stay at home with my children. These are also very clear and polite responses. Okay, now if you're a student, the answer is slightly different. You can say, I'm a student, and then mention your subject. I study English. I study engineering. You can also include the name of your school or university. I study at Oxford University. Or I study at the local high school. Sometimes people ask, what are you studying? And then you can reply, I'm studying biology. I'm studying history. I'm studying English. And if you've already finished your studies, you can say, I studied English. I studied law at university. That explains your background. Of course, some people both study and work simultaneously. You can say, I study business and I also work in a shop, or I'm a student, but I have a part-time job in a cafe. Yeah, that's very common, and it's an excellent way to present a more complete picture of your life. People often find it interesting when you combine both, when you talk about both. So, Becky, what are some of the questions one might hear about jobs and studying? Well, people may ask, what do you do? What do you do? Where do you work? Where do you work? Do you like your job? Do you like your job? Are you a student? Are you a student? What do you study? What do you study? Where do you study? Where do you study? Great. And for every single one, you now know the simple answers. For example, what do you do? I'm a teacher. Do you like your job? Yeah, I do. Or it's okay, but sometimes it's difficult. Are you a student? Yeah, I am. I study economics. Where do you study? I study at Oxford University. You see, these are simple patterns, but they can be used in almost any situation, all right? Sometimes when you meet new people, you don't just want to state your name, your job, or your country. You might also want to describe your personality. That refers to the kind of person you are. This helps people understand you better and can make the conversation feel warmer, okay? More friendly. And the great news is you don't need difficult vocabulary for this. Simple words are perfectly fine. You can use I'm and then one or two adjectives. For instance, I'm friendly. I'm shy. I'm hardworking. I'm funny. That's right. When I describe myself, I often say, I'm friendly and patient. I like listening to people. These are two qualities, two features, two characteristics that I feel really represent who I am. And I usually say, I'm curious. I like learning new things. I'm also a little quiet sometimes. That's true, Tom. You are quiet at times. Yeah, that's a part of my personality. Everyone has different aspects. Sometimes you're outgoing, and other times you're quiet. So if you want to describe yourself in a positive light, there are some easy and common words you can use. For example, you can say, I'm friendly. This means you like interacting with others. Or, I'm hardworking. That means you put your best effort into your job or studies. You can also say, I'm helpful. That means you like to assist people. Or, I'm kind. That means you care about other people. These simple adjectives are very effective. You don't need large, complicated words. Just one or two can paint a clear picture of your character, your personality. Now, some people like to describe themselves based on their energy level. Okay? For instance, I'm active or I'm relaxed. These words inform others about your lifestyle and your way of being. Yeah. Or you can say, I'm serious. That means you approach things carefully. Or the opposite, I'm easygoing. That means you are relaxed and not easily stressed. I often say I'm positive. That means I try to find the good in situations. And sometimes I say I'm open-minded. That means I like to hear new ideas. Now I have a question, Tom. How do people ask about your personality? Well, that's a fantastic question, Becky. The most common question is, what are you like? What are you like? And this question often confuses learners because it does not mean, what do you like? It means, what is your personality like? So if someone asks, what are you like? You can answer, I'm friendly and patient, or I'm shy but curious. Great. And I can think of another question. How would you describe yourself? This is frequently asked in job interviews. In that situation, you can offer 2 or 3 positive qualities like, I'm hardworking, creative, and reliable. And sometimes people will just ask, are you shy or are you outgoing? Then you can respond, yeah, I'm shy, or no, I'm quite outgoing. Okay, we've covered a lot today. We discussed how to introduce yourself, where you're from, your age, your family, your job or studies, and your personality. Yeah, all the fundamental topics for talking about yourself in English. With just a handful of simple patterns, you can give people a clear idea of who you are. And remember, you don't have to use long, complicated sentences. Short, simple sentences are all you need. Just say them with confidence. And the more you practice, the more natural it will become. So try using these sentences today, maybe with a friend, maybe in a class, or even just to yourself in the mirror. We hope this episode provides you with the confidence to talk about yourself in English anytime, anywhere. Thank you so much, my friends, for spending this time with us. Tom. All right, Becky. That was a fantastic overview of the essentials. Our friends listening should now feel much more comfortable introducing themselves, talking about their family, and describing their work or studies. Becky. It was. But Tom, a real conversation doesn't just stop there, right? After you learn someone's name and job, you want to get to know them as a person. The basics are the key to open the door. But what happens once you step inside? Tom, that is the perfect way to put it. The next step is to share a little more about your life, your passions, and what makes you, you. This is where you move from just exchanging information to actually building a connection. That's how friendships are really formed. Becky, exactly. So today we want to expand on that. We're going to explore how to talk about your hobbies, your daily life, your favorites, and even your dreams for the future. These are the topics that add color and depth to your self-introduction. Let's start with a really common and friendly topic, hobbies and interests. Part 7, Hobbies and Interests. Tom, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. After the basics are covered, someone will almost always ask, so what do you do for fun? Or, what do you like to do in your free time? Becky, yes, it's a great low-pressure way to find common ground. The simplest way to answer is with patterns we already know, like I like or I enjoy. For example, I like reading books or I enjoy playing soccer. Tom, those are perfect and everyone will understand you. But if you want to sound a little more natural and enthusiastic, you can use phrases like I'm really into or I'm a big fan of. For example, I could say, I'm really into hiking. I try to go to the mountains at least once a month. Becky, that sounds more passionate, doesn't it? For me, I might say, I'm a big fan of photography. I love taking pictures of nature and cityscapes on the weekends. Another great phrase is, in my spare time, for instance, in my spare time, I like to try new recipes and bake cakes. Tom, oh, I'd love to try one of your cakes sometime. You see, when you share a hobby, it often leads to more conversation. If I say I'm into hiking, someone might ask, oh, that's cool. Where do you usually go hiking? It's a natural way to keep the conversation flowing. Becky, here's a cultural tip. Don't be afraid to share what you love, even if you think it's simple. Whether it's watching movies, playing video games, gardening, or just listening to music, people are genuinely interested in what brings you joy. It makes you more relatable. Part 8, Daily Life and Routines. Tom, okay, so after hobbies, another thing people might be curious about is your daily life. It gives them a small window into your world. A common question is, what's a typical day like for you? Becky, this is a fantastic way to practice the simple present tense because you're talking about habits and routines. You can break your answer down into parts of the day. For example, you can start with your morning. Well, on weekdays, I usually wake up around 7 a.m. I always start my day with a cup of coffee and read the news for about 15 minutes. Tom, that's a great start. Then you can talk about your work or study day. I might say, I get to school around 8:30. I teach classes in the morning, have lunch with my colleagues, and then teach again in the afternoon. My workday usually finishes around 5 p.m. Notice the use of time markers like around, in the morning, and in the afternoon. Becky, and don't forget the evening. What do you do to relax? You could say, after work, I like to go to the gym for an hour to unwind. Then I go home, make dinner, and usually watch a TV show or read a book before I go to sleep. Tom, it's also really useful to talk about how your weekends are different. This shows another side of your life. For example, my weekends are much more relaxed. I don't set an alarm, so I usually sleep in. On Saturdays, I often meet up with friends for lunch or go to the park if the weather's nice. Becky, describing your routine doesn't have to be a minute-by-minute schedule. Just giving 2 or 3 key details about your morning, work day, and evening can paint a very clear picture of your life for someone. Part 9. Talking about your favorites. Becky, this next one is all about sharing your personality through your preferences. People love to connect over shared favorites, whether it's food, music, or movies. The question is simple. What's your favorite? Tom. And the answer is just as simple. You can say, my favorite food is pizza, or my favorite kind of music is classic rock. To expand on that, you can add a little reason why. My favorite food is Thai green curry because I love spicy and flavorful food. Becky, exactly. Adding why makes your answer more interesting. When it comes to movies or TV shows, you can talk about genres. For example, I'm a huge fan of science fiction movies. I've seen every Star Wars film at least 5 times. Or, a very modern and common thing to say is, I've been binge watching a great crime drama on Netflix recently. Tom, it's also important to know how to talk about things you don't like, but in a polite way. Instead of saying, I hate it, which can sound very strong, you can use softer phrases. For example, I'm not a big fan of horror movies. They're a little too scary for me. Becky, that's a great point. Another polite phrase is, it's not really my thing. If someone asks if you like country music, you could say, "To be honest, it's not really my thing. I prefer listening to pop or R&B." This is a very gentle and common way to express a dislike without being offensive. Part 10. Future Plans and Aspirations. Tom, our final topic for today is a bit deeper. Once you feel comfortable in a conversation, you might start talking about the future. This includes your goals, your plans, and your dreams. This really shows people what you're passionate about and what motivates you. Becky, people might ask, do you have any exciting plans coming up? Or a bigger question like, what are some of your goals in life? It's good to have an answer for both short-term and long-term plans. Tom, for short-term plans, you can use phrases like, I'm planning to, or I'm hoping to. For example, I'm planning to take a short trip to the coast next month. Or, I'm hoping to finish a Spanish course I'm taking online by the end of the year. Becky. And for long-term goals or dreams, which are bigger and further away, you can use phrases like, one day I'd love to, or my biggest dream is to. For me, I could say, one day I'd love to travel around Southeast Asia for a few months. Tom, that sounds amazing. For me, a long-term professional goal might be, my dream is to write my own book for English learners. Sharing a dream, big or small, makes you a very interesting and three-dimensional person. It shows you have ambitions and things you look forward to. Becky, so we've covered a lot more ground today, from hobbies and daily routines to your favorite things and future dreams. These are the details that truly bring a self-introduction to life. Tom, absolutely. Remember, you don't have to share everything all at once. A conversation is a dance. You share a little, then you listen. But now you have the tools and the phrases to share more of your amazing story when the time is right. Becky, we hope this gives you even more confidence to not just start conversations in English, but to build real, meaningful connections. Thank you so much, my friends, for spending this extra time with us. Tom, and remember, practice a little every day. I'm Tom, Becky, and I'm Becky, and this is English Unleashed. Both. Until next time, keep learning and keep believing in yourself. Bye for now. And remember, practice a little bit each day. I'm Tom, and I'm Becky, and this is English Unleashed. Until next time, keep learning and keep believing in yourself. Bye for now.